podcast in the world. We help athletes develop proficiency and assist in their passion for the game that they love. We have some great response from all you listeners, and I want to say thank you. Please keep up the passing the word and download our episode of your choice either on iTunes or Spotify. Today episode is episode 90. We've come a long way. Which today's guest is no stranger to our podcast. He's very own Billy Horton, which is a professional baseball coach, an author, a speaker that loves Jesus. He's embraced the opportunity that he will give me an example for all of his daily life. And also, over the last 20 years, Billy has coach experience working with the San Francisco Giants, my favorite team, Arizona Diamondbacks, Chicago White Sox, where I'm from, and the Texas Rangers in different roles over the years. He has managed staffs, wrote 1,000 of players, scouting reports, directed on and off the field events for players. He's also helped lead diverse workforces both on and off the field. Lastly, and he is the author of the very own book called Today. Let's bring on Billy Horton. How you doing, Billy Horton?
I sound really important right now.
Well, I
It's
think
I'm
you.
not I'm way less important than what you just said, but thank you
Oh
for that
man!
intro.
Oh wow! Here we go.
My
He's
dog
both.
thinks I'm not my dog thinks I'm not important. That's the way he sees with his unconditional love of me. Rusty, that's how Rusty sees me. So I'm thankful. Thank you.
Well, hey, I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity and the time again. We've met before, we've met again, and we will keep meeting. Anything that I can do to help bring forth, like I said, I purchased your to book today, the book, and today it's about turning your passion into your profession. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball, but we're going to talk a little bit about a few other things. But one of the most important things we're going to talk about today's book, which I want you guys to go ahead and get a copy. Yes, I'm endorsing the book. I am endorsing the book. I want you to go ahead and get your copy off Amazon and whatever the books are being sold. This is a very good book. You know, it reminds me of the book, The Passion. I think the pastor, what was the pastor's name, Billy? The one in Texas. He started the Passion. It was like for years. He talked about your passion. Do you remember that back in the day?
Um,
He was a pastor in Texas. He talked about, passion. I don't remember
I'm
his
not
name,
familiar.
but he talked.
Purpose-driven life is
That's it.
obviously a
That's
book.
it.
Yeah. So Rick Warren,
Rick Moore.
down in Southern California, Purpose-driven life. That's a book that was very influential in my life. Um, I would love to get this book in Pastor Rick's hands. It really is. For me to talk about what this book is really about, if that's where you're going with this.
Yes, yes, sir.
I've always loved the game of baseball. Ever since I was 10 years old is when I knew I wanted to play professionally, and it didn't get me to where I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be 20 years in the big leagues. That didn't happen, but God had a different plan for me. And but that passion was ingrained in me since I was a little boy. And really,
Hmm.
the two things I've been the most passionate about my entire life is my love of Jesus and baseball.
That's
And
right.
he's been I'm very thankful that through his grace of all the mistakes I've made, that he's still allowed me to stay in baseball, and now using me um, for his glory to
Hmm.
help others. And yeah, really, this book's about following your passion and having the guts to do it. Now, I'm not telling people to do what I did, which is basically stop everything, you know, sell all your possessions and move into your mom's house at 32 and start a baseball camp company with no clients and just walking around. Literally, if you read the book, it literally I walked around to little league fields with a business card that didn't even have my logo on it; it just had my name on it. And through God's grace and His favor, 2 years later, I'm speaking in front of the state of Arizona Little League, all the district presidents, and
Right.
giving speeches about hitting and throwing. And when you're in God's will, you'll see the fruit. You'll see how um, how He'll bless it. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I mean, it wasn't easy. And in this book, it really talks about going through those steps. So the one thing you read books and it talks about like my story
Right.
and it's inspirational. But with this book, what I wanted to do is be a blueprint.
Mm.
So every chapter it talks about. So today's an acronym, and the T is take action, right? So what does
Mhm.
take action look like? So the first half of the chapter shows you what does take action mean, and
Correct.
and then it goes into my story and how I started my company from very, very, very small beginnings. And then this chapter ends, and then it goes into O, which is overcome. And what does overcome look like?
Right.
And then it goes back into my story. So
Right.
each chapter does that through 7 chapters, which the first 5 being the acronym today, and then the setback and the comeback, chapter 6 and 7. But I
Right.
really want people to know that whether it's starting your own company, or whether it's really following what you love to do, you can do it at a point in time in your career.
Correct.
I believe this can make an impact on a lot of people. Really, I think the 20 and 30-year-old market could be something where people are really kind of searching what they want to do, or they're transitioning to something else that could be in their 40s. But I want to show them how to do that. And,
Correct.
like my friend Troy Theall, he's a very, very successful real estate person right now. But back in the day, he was a PE teacher, but he wanted to do real estate, but he was smart enough where he kept his job, and then he did real estate on the side, because he was passionate about that. And then he started making enough money in real estate where he was able to quit his job as a PE teacher, and now he's doing very well and blessing a lot of other people through his real estate.
Like
So it could be a ministry that you start. It could be a side job that turns into a full-time job. It could just be, you want to go into coaching, and you go into coaching as you still have a full-time job. But I just know from my own experience, when you are passionate about what you're doing, you will be more successful.
right.
And I'm trying to encourage people to do that and have the guts to take a step out. I mean, biblically, Peter stepped out of the boat. You got to get wet.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you don't sit on the sidelines and expect things to happen. Jordan missed, Jordan, Michael Jordan, greatest. I'm pimping my Lion stuff today. Today is, I don't know when this is going to go online, but today is the NFL draft. I'm Detroit through and through, and I don't like Michael Jordan. I respect Michael Jordan. Okay, if Michael hears this, I don't like you. I do respect you. But here's the deal. I mean, I grew up Pistons bad boys in the '80s. Like, I love Lambeer. I love Isaiah. I love Rodman. I mean, those are the guys that I looked up to, right? So I'm a little different, right? But Jordan he talked about how he took all those shots that he missed,
right.
right? Like
Right.
he had no conscience. It didn't matter. It
Right.
was like he made all those shots he's known for, but all those he missed. It's like, you got to shoot.
Right. Right.
You can't get anything, and there's nothing's going to happen. You're not going to achieve anything unless you try.
That's right.
So
that's
what
good.
it's all
That's
about.
good. That's good. That's good, Billy. Because that's my very next question is this. I like. I kind of jumped around in your book a little bit because I like the way you did the acronym TODAY. But this is something that I want to talk about is applying today's mentality. And I jumped all the way to page 101 because it gives like a little brief of everything, a little bit of everything, and what does today's mentality look like? Oh, how can you give them a tip? Because a lot of times people are looking at the situation they're in instead of what their passion is. So, can you break down for the people that have not have your book, what do you mean by today's mentality?
Yeah, and I'll go back in time because this is a Christian podcast too, right? I said the word pimp, and I should have said the word representing my lion. So I apologize to you right now
That's
about my
okay.
verbiage.
That's
But
okay. I know
yeah,
what you meant. It's
because
okay.
I love you. But
It's all good.
yeah, that today mentality, really. So I'll go through the acronym with you right now. So T is take action, O is overcome, D is dream, A is achieve,
Chief.
and Y is yes. And so we don't take no for an answer, because yes, a no could just be an opportunity for a yes down the
Later
road.
on. That's right.
It's really about having that tenacity,
Correct.
having that mentality of, this is what now. I have a small group of people who speak into my life, and so people like Mike Stanley and Bill Crawford are my 2 mentors, and then people like Steve Stanley and Andre Wadsworth and Jim Reed and Corey DeHaan, all these,
Hmm.
John Heising, and these guys, Chris Sylvester, Danny Putnam. These guys are those are my next circle of guys that I go
Gotcha.
to. So I go to them, as it says in Proverbs, of going and having wise counsel.
Council.
So the today mentality is that you pray about it. You believe this is where you're supposed to go. You're asking wise counsel from a very small group of people. You are doing your homework. You're like, for me, when I got the word to start Cactus Athletics. I was in Michigan, and I was on the floor, praying, and I hear the word cactus. I didn't know what it meant, and I was talking to my buddy about starting a baseball camp company, but I knew it wasn't going to work, in my opinion, in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Correct.
For me, it wasn't going to grow to what it needed to be. Now, could
Correct.
you do a baseball company in Battle Creek? Yes, and I hope
Yeah.
someone goes out and does it and proves me wrong. But for me, it was a matter of like it wasn't where I thought it was going to flourish.
Correct.
But I went to high school, and I'm from Air, and I've been out in Arizona for 20 years of my life. So I used that wisdom, and I was okay. Well, I think this is where God wants me to go.
I got you.
So it's not a matter of just being passionate about something and being frivolous and just going after, like, it wasn't me just like being crazy and saying, I'm just going to drop everything I do and I'm going to go do this. No, it was planned out.
Mm.
So that today mentality that you're talking about is it's using wisdom and then having the courage to step out. Because if you think about it, it's a little crazy
Yeah.
to just drop everything and drive 2,000 miles and start a company,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
But again, it was a matter of it was thought out. It was months in the making. But then I got to a point where I got fired from my job, and I didn't have any. It wasn't me quitting and leaving. It was, okay, what am I going to do now?
Right.
And then it's
Right.
March, and it's baseball season's coming up.
That's right.
So I knew the time was right.
Mm.
So it's about being wise, planning what you're doing, and then taking action and getting after it. Because you can sit on the sideline all you want, and it's not a matter. It's like, I believe that God performs miracles. I've seen miracles happen in my own life. He's also not a genie, right? You don't just sit there and rub the lamp and he pops out and, hey, here's your wish. It's like,
That's
you got to
right.
move forward. And
That's
Aeneas
right.
Williams is an awesome pastor. He's out in St. Louis. He's a Hall of Fame cornerback for the Cardinals and the Rams. And he talked about in a message I heard 15 years ago, take the necessary steps towards your goal, and then at some point when you keep going, and then you're not getting any more movement, then you let God take control. And that's what I
Yeah.
got out of his message. And
I,
it's just
li-
a matter of, okay, take the necessary steps towards your goal, and then let God take over.
I like that what you just said, because it kind of brings me back to the scripture in Proverbs 3 verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not to own thy understanding, and acknowledge him in all thy ways. And the last part is, and he shall direct your path. And a lot of times I think, we've been walking with God for quite a while. And when you're a baby Christian or anything new, it's a scary situation. Goes back to what you talked about when you started your company, being in a colder state, and then you felt that God told you to go to a warmer state. I'm just using that for a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to be more fruitful with that, because people think that when I'm in a bad situation, just use this for a bad situation, how can I focus on my passions when I'm bankrupt? I don't have anything. Nobody knows me. I'm in Michigan when I should be in Arizona. Brings me to the part when you talk about on page 85, the setback. I actually like setbacks. And the reason I say I like setbacks, not because I want to stay in a setback, but I don't call it a setback. I call it a setup. It's a setback
Mm-hmm.
for a setup, so God's grace can come up. And you said here, spending time in the wilderness, and you talked about having this passion, being in the outdoors, and then you talked about, if you break down and you keep reading it, it says a test of your faith. Can you elaborate on that, if you don't mind?
Sure. So if you grew up in the 80s, you'll appreciate this if you love music from the 80s. Um, so if without a test, there's no testimony. All you got left is Moni Moni.
That's right.
And that's a little Billy Idol reference. Not that I
I'm
listen to
with
Billy
you.
Idol
I
anymore.
understand. I'm with you. I grew up in.
But
I'm with you.
but yeah, if there's the testimony is not always something I like talking about. Like there's things that I went through in my life that you or other people will never know about because it's embarrassing.
Right.
I lived a life that was, I grew up a very strong Christian, and then in my 20s I walked away, and then and thankfully by God's grace I came back, and he embraced me like the prodigal son, he embraced me to come back. Um, so I only share parts of my testimony to help others. If there's a gentleman at church and Bible study who's really struggling with something, and it's really, maybe it's tearing his marriage apart, or it's hurting his relationship with his kids, and he has enough guts to stand up in front of 100 guys and say, I'm struggling with this, or he
Right.
in private does that, I'll pull him aside and say, hey, listen, Bob, I had that same problem when I was 28 years old, and this is how God took me out of that, and let me help you walk through that. So I don't like what happened to me when I was 28 years old or whenever that was in my life, but I'm going to share that with him to help him, because our testimony is not to glorify us, it's to glorify God.
Amen.
And it's to help people understand you're not alone. That's
Amen.
why I love going to Bible study and our church. I grew up in a town of 2,000 people with a one stoplight town in West Branch, Michigan. And that's, I'll always be my hometown no matter what. I go to a church in Scottsdale where this past Easter, I think we had close to 20,000 people come to church. I mean, it's crazy how God's blessed this church, right? You got people at our church and they don't work for the company, they own the company.
Mm.
And then you're at Bible study and you think he's got it all together because he's got all the money and he's got the
Right.
beautiful wife and he's got the kids and he's got the cars and everything, and he's a total train wreck.
Right.
And he goes out there and he's vulnerable and he's like, I need help.
Right.
So that testimony that I have or that you have or anyone else helps that person get closer to Christ. So that's the whole point, is that you're going to be in the wilderness, right? And God says you're going to go through it. So thank God that you're going to go through it. You're not going to get stuck in the valley. You're going to go through that valley and at some point get on the other side of it. So we love the mountaintops, but we grow in the valleys. That's where the vegetation, right? On the mountain ranges.
That's right.
That's something I reference in that chapter, I think. And,
Mm-hmm.
we have to grow in order to get ready for the next step.
Right.
And I wrote an article on my website about being a sponge. And if you think about it with a sponge, the only way a sponge is good and it's useful is that when it's dry, right? So that soaks things up, right? And then if it just stays wet and funky and nasty, it's useless. You can't use it anymore until you wring it out.
Correct.
So for me, I want to go ahead and learn more about God's word and soak that up. And then when I wring that sponge out, I'm giving that to someone else. And then I learn more elsewhere, right? So I'm continuing to build. So I need to be a conduit where I'm learning from people like Mike and Bill or the people from my church, and then I'm able to pass it on to the next generation of people or my friends alongside me. So really that testimony and that teaching and everything, it's all about helping someone else come closer to Christ.
Oh man, that's good stuff, Billy. I really, really like that. And also in your book, the one thing that I really like that I don't see in a lot of books, and it's the last page, and it's called Life Application. It's like you almost gave them a book with a how to do it, or quizzing. It's like I like it because I like books that are more informative, not just reading it and get information, but the information you read, how can we apply it to today's life? What made you come up with that type of idea with a book like that?
Sure. So I love reading books. I didn't love reading books when I was a teenager. It wasn't something that I was into. And then I started to get an affinity for books when I was, later in my 20s and started reading more. I think really reading the Bible really started kind of kicking that off when I was in my mid 20s, and then picking up different books. It really just started to build that passion. So I looked at other books. I looked at how people did it. And, I was talking to a gentleman this morning, John Greaves. He's a friend of mine. And, he got one of the first copies of the book. And I was sitting there talking to him this morning about it. And he asked me, where do you think this is going to make the most impact? And I feel like it's going to make the impact in those 20s and 30s. Like I want to get it to every single athletic director in the country, from Division I to NAI, because I feel like those athletes, male and female both, you know how it is. Your identity is really in your sport. It's not always in Christ.
That's right.
And what am I going to do now? I'm 22 years old. I've been an athlete since I was 8.
Correct.
So what am I going to do? And sometimes they'll graduate with a degree in marketing like I did, and then they don't really want to work in an office. They don't know what they want to do. So I want to get this book into people's hands where I can help them. So the whole point of those questions at the back was, okay, let's have some reflection. I want you to read the book. And part of that, if you look at Purpose-Driven Life, I believe Pastor Rick did something like that too. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and have something to go back to now. Someone told me a few days ago, they're like, this could be a great Bible study for a church.
Yes.
I can see a men's group looking at this and going, because my wife runs the Bible studies at our church for the women, and then Todd Baffo runs it for the men. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll get a book. So
Right.
like Craig Rochelle is an
Right.
awesome pastor.
Right.
His
Yes.
book Fight was
Right.
really influential in my life,
Yeah.
and he's the one who runs the Bible app. So that's them. They do the Bible app on your phone. So you have that Bible app. That's Craig Rochelle. And so I look at it like I want a church to say, hey, let's go get 100 copies of today,
Mm.
and let's have it for our men, and let's do a men's study and walk through this. So the reason I did that is for people to have reflection points to go back to. Because for me, I'm someone who is a visual person. I need to write stuff down. I need to highlight stuff. So I would love to see people having this book and having their orange or yellow highlighter out there and having their pen and making
Right.
notes, and then they can go back to it. Like when I go to hear someone speak at an event,
Right.
I'm writing notes down and I go back to those notes so
Right.
that it'll help me help someone else, or it just helps me in my everyday life being a better dad and a better husband, just a better coach, better person.
Yeah. I
So that's
like
why
that.
we did those questions, was to have some your own personal feedback, like, hey, this is what, so you know what, I want to start my own company. What does take action look like? How am I going to do it?
Right. Correct.
So
Correct.
that way you can write down, like, this is my plan of action, this is how I'm going to
Correct.
do it, I can do it right in here in this book.
I like that. Hey, Bill, I'm going to read something to you for the listeners. In Habakkuk 2, verse 2, it says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain on the tables, that he may run who reads it." And the reason I read that scripture, because on page 41, you talk about dreams. It says, "Shoot high and see yourself accomplish your goals." And then the very first sentence, you said, "Dreams are powerful." But the reason I'm bringing that up, because I remember in our other podcast you talked about shooting for the moon. I remember that you were talking about shooting for the moon because you were trying to become a professional baseball player, and then you wind up hitting the stars. I'm just going back.
Oh,
I just remember when we talked when we had the last episode, and the question I want to ask you is, can you break down the difference between a dream and a vision? Because a lot of times people think dreams are visions, but as I just said, as you just talked about it, you like to write things down. I like to write things. I'm visual too. I have to write it down because I will forget it. I can read something, but I'll forget. If I write it, it's like, okay, it's like putting it in action. So can you break down based on your chapter dreams? What's the difference between a dream and a vision?
that's really good, I appreciate that. I'm going to go a sidetrack for 1 minute, back to the 80s and the 90s, my passion in music. And now I listen to all Christian artists. And but Van Halen was a really big
Oh yeah, back in
band
the
for
day.
me.
Oh yeah.
And so the song Dreams,
Oh yeah.
it was being played by fighter pilots back during Desert Storm. And that's
Mm.
when I heard it on the radio. I was like, man, this song's awesome. So I became a big Van Halen fan, and that song was really, really important to me. I actually ended up doing my, you can't find it online. It's not on YouTube.
Okay.
Um, but it's my high school highlight tape that I sent out to colleges,
Okay.
and it was to the song Dreams.
Oh.
And then the album is 5150. And I thought about it later on when I was already in college. My address growing up in Glendale, Arizona, was 5150. That was the apartment complex I lived at.
Oh.
5150, I think it was West UG
Oh
Avenue.
man.
And I was like, gosh, it's just kind of funny how God,
Right.
these little coincidences, right? And the difference, I think personally, between a dream and a vision, um, I believe all visions start out as dreams.
Right.
We think about what is it we want to do, and the difference between the dream and the vision, I think, is the application. So for me, it's like having a plan. Like a dream is just a matter of, I want to be like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar someday, or I want to
Hmm.
be like Babe Ruth someday. I want to
Right.
be like one of the all-time greats
Great.
that played the game. I want to be Gordie Howe someday. I want to be these guys who are all-time greats in their sport. I want to be an actor. I want to be a performer. How are you going to do it?
Right.
And the vision comes down to, I do really want to do this. I have a passion about this. I have this dream. How do I make it a reality? And then the vision, what that comes down to is, one, I believe that you're taking those steps towards it, right? I believe that you're having that wise counsel. I also believe that at some point, God may change. You may have a vision to do something, but if it's not within God's will for your life,
Correct.
He's going to alter that. And people may say, well, that's not fair. Well, okay, you can just because you want it doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Correct.
I wanted to spend my entire life playing professional baseball, never coaching one day of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That was my dream. And I had a vision for it, and I worked hard and I worked towards it. At some point, I was butting my head up against a door that wasn't going to come down. And then I shifted into coaching, and then this is where I think I'm supposed to go. And then God blessed that. God moved it.
Mm-hmm.
So the short answer I would think is really what I talked about is the difference between that is having a plan, taking action, and going after that vision. And
Mm-hmm.
in the vision also people talk about a vision statement. You're writing it down. You're writing down. A dream is something in your head, but a vision is something you're writing down and you're doing it. A short pencil is better than a long memory, right?
Yes,
Like
indeed. Yes,
like
indeed.
write it down, put it into, it's like people say about putting it into the atmosphere, like like you're speaking it into existence. Like, hey, I'm gonna go up today, I'm gonna get in a hit right now, I'm hitting
Mm-hmm.
this ball hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do, like, you're being positive self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
like Ricky Henderson talking in third person. Ricky gonna run.
Oh
Ricky
yeah,
gonna run. Like, it's like he
that's
knew
right.
he was fast. He's gonna go after it. Like, it's like you need to have a plan together and then put that vision on paper, and then you need to go after it with everything you got.
I like that. I mean, what you just said, because at the end of the day, I personally believe everyone that is born has a dream, and with that, you have to cultivate that dream to become a fruition. Now, a lot of people don't do that because we know that the cemetery is the most richest places where they have all dead dreams and dead visions because a lot of people didn't do anything. Which leads me to that next thing. For the people that are or guys or girls that are playing professional sports, I want you to give some encouragement with your book because you talk about today. So my question for the guys that are ending their career because of an injury or they can't play baseball no more and they're like sitting on the bench right now. I call it sitting on the bench. They're sitting on the bench. They've been a star in the show, but now all of a sudden life is changing. They're getting older. They can't do things. I'm asking you. They said their passion is baseball. They were playing baseball. How can you shift them and help them understand that today is a new day?
Yeah. By the way, everybody listening, I didn't get these questions ahead of time, so these are really good questions. You are stretching me, and I like it. I like being stretched.
Oh,
Call
I'm
me
sorry.
Gumby.
Billy,
Call me Gumby.
you
I,
know me, Billy.
I,
This
I
is
can't
not your
repeat
first.
what Eddie Murphy said after that. It's not the right place. But
Oh,
I am flexible. So yeah, for me, it's okay. I'm a player, right? My whole life. Okay,
correct,
and I love baseball.
correct,
I can't play anymore. And
correct,
that was your question, right?
correct,
So what do I do next?
correct.
Okay, is that going to be? I'm going to go ahead and use my accounting degree, and I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to become a dad, and I'm going to coach my team, my kids' teams. Am I going to volunteer because I'm single in a youth baseball league? Am I going to get in and I'm going while I'm doing my job, right? Because maybe I'm not called into coaching. A lot of players, I feel like they at least put their toe in the pool and they try to go back to college and get a master's degree and get into coaching and become and do that if they can afford to do it. I couldn't afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go back and get and be a grad assistant because it was something I couldn't afford to do financially at that point. So for me, I went in a different route and I started working for the Diamondbacks. I got very fortunate to get an opportunity to work for them, right? Because it was someone I knew, and it wasn't a full time position, but it was something
Right.
where I had an opportunity to work as a part time employee, as an independent contractor. So for me, is I was that person. I was 26 years old. I decided to hang him up. I had more fuel in the tank. I had more tread on the tires, and I decided to stop. Um, so it doesn't have to be I have to go into professional coaching. What it is if you believe. So I'll go back to a story about Pat Knight. So Pat and I were friends. Pat's dad was the famous Bobby Knight.
Okay.
And I don't know if I said this on the last podcast or not, but Pat and I are sitting around his apartment. He gets an offer from Nike. We're both like in our
Right.
very early to mid 20s. And Pat got a job offer from Nike, which was at the time in the mid 90s. It was quite a bit of money. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, Billy, I can't take the job. I said, why? He says, I have a responsibility to get back to the game. I've learned so much from all these coaches, and he was a player at Indiana. Played for his dad. He played for some great coaches, right?
Hmm.
He had that on him. Like, I've got to give back to the game and give it back to the next generation. I have to go into coaching. He took a minor league basketball coaching position. So for me, if you are an athlete that played, it doesn't matter if you were a Division I athlete at Mississippi State or if you were an NAI player, right? It doesn't matter where you've been in baseball. I'm using baseball as a reference
Okay.
for the past probably 15, 20 years of your life. If you're a 21-year-old, you've been playing baseball since you were probably 5 years old. Let's do the math. 16 years you've been in the game of baseball, and you've been at a high level because I think it's less than 10% of all high school athletes get to play in college, even at a small school. So you are an elite. So anyone who's listening to this, who's an NAI ball player like I was, and people say that you went to a small school. It doesn't matter. You are elite. You are one of the less than 10% of anyone in the world who's played a collegiate sport,
That's right.
right? So you have more information and more knowledge than a lot of people that do. So yeah, give back to the game. It doesn't have to be that you're going to go into it for your profession, but maybe you're doing it as a passion that you want to do and be a youth. Maybe all of a sudden that turns into a youth academy.
Right.
Maybe it turns into a club, that you want to do, and you want to do more than just have like, a dozen club teams and it'd be a big money grab. Maybe you're doing it for a small group of people and you're also investing time in them. Maybe you're a Christian and you're investing the Lord in them as well, and you're building up young men. Youth baseball is not about building professional athletes. Youth baseball is about building young people to be our next generation of leaders.
Hmm.
So that's what
Hmm.
our focus has to be on.
I
Is
like
that
that.
what's
I
going
like
to
that.
lead me into next?
Which that leads me to the next question. We're gonna jump to the O of your book. I'm giving the listener a bit of everything of your book, so they can go purchase it, so they can go get it. We're gonna go into O. It says overcome. You will have doubters, and the biggest one could be you. What do you mean by that?
So I had a lot of people tell me how good I wasn't,
Hmm. Wow.
and I started to believe it.
Wow.
Right? Um, you have people that keep telling you you're not good enough, or you're too skinny, or you don't have this, you don't have that, and then it wears on your confidence. One of my good friends from college, Chad Sedetol, he was our center fielder, and he knew I dealt with that. I would put scripture in my locker, scripture in my hat, and I would always sit there. I was trying to have that positive influence and being bathed in the word and just trying to remember to be self-confident because I wasn't. I dealt with some anxiety. I dealt with um, my issue was this is like, if I don't get a hit this at bat, he's going to bench me again,
Right. Right. Right.
and we had a very good, we had a very successful college coach who won a lot of games, and he and I just didn't always click. And it was hard for me because that when I was going good, I was in the lineup. But then if I got into a little slump, I I was out, and so I always looked over my shoulder, like, what if I don't do good? And that's what hurt me. Like, you got to remember too, I go from being the best player, in West Branch, Michigan, to going to Arizona and getting cut, 2 years later, my freshman year, and then I got to spend 2 years on junior varsity, and then barely make varsity my senior year, and then I go to a small school, and everyone's always telling me how you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, um, and you start believing it, and then you worry about if I don't perform today, I won't be out in the lineup tomorrow.
Right.
So for me, my heart goes out to people who have that, they deal, and it's a real thing, dealing with anxiety,
Mm.
slowing your heart down, being able to believe that you're playing for an audience of one. So, for me now, being a manager, being a coach, the wins and losses are something that it's the wooden principle that I call it. We don't ever talk about it. I've been very thankful we've been successful, so it's helped improve the wooden principle that about we don't talk about winning. We just go out and we prepare as best we can, mentally and physically, and then we perform our very best. And if your athlete does that for you, that's all you can ask for. And as a coach, it's all you can ask for of yourself, because you can sit and beat yourself up all the time.
Right.
Well, I should have made this decision, should have made that decision. Well, in the moment, if you thought about it and it was the right decision, you do it. So, for me, having self confidence, but then now it's like, I'm not. trying to prove anybody wrong. Because here's the thing: if someone doesn't believe in you and you fail, they're just going to say, "Told you so."
Right.
If you succeed, they're going to be like, "Hey, good job." You can't win. You can never please that person. So why are you trying to?
Correct.
Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they think. If they're not in your small circle, it doesn't matter because they're going to sit there and just blast you on Twitter and say how you suck and all this and that. And I told you so. He wasn't any good. And then, oh, hey, congratulations. Here's a
Mm.
DM. Hey, good job.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to honor God with the gifts he gave me.
Mm.
And that's all I need to do. So literally people talk about, playing for an audience of one. Okay, write it down on a napkin, put it on a wall. That's great. But do it, live it. And that's what gives me peace now is that if I go at the end of the day and we lose, and I've lost in championship games, I've lost difficult playoff games. There's been some gut wrenchers that you go through, but at the end of the day, you go look in the mirror, and you're like, did I give everything? Did I honor
Right.
you today,
Mm.
Lord? Did I honor you with what I did? When you're on your knees, you look in the mirror and say, did I do everything I could today? Okay,
Correct.
I did. You get on your knees. Did I honor you with what I did? And if you didn't, then you're praying and saying, hey, I need forgiveness for what I did.
That's right.
Um, but really, it's about if you're trying to honor Him, the wins and losses just don't stack up. And you know what? I've never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse. You can't take it with you, right? You can't
That's
take it
right.
with you. And I got a box right here because I'm going to go speak at my son's high school. They have a lunch today. I'm going to speak to the players. I got a box full of championship rings sitting here. I'm going to go talk to these guys about, and the message is not going to be about championships.
That's right.
And those rings are going to go. They're going to be dispersed amongst my kids, my grandkids. They're not going to be on me when I'm in a box.
That's
You
right.
know,
I like
like
that.
so it's like, what do we do? What are we striving for at the end of the day with things that aren't eternal?
I and also Billy, which I got a question. You said some very powerful things you just talked about, and I'm bringing this up because you know I'm on social media because I'm trying to hit a certain market, with, and I have a brand, I have a business, and the one thing that I've noticed, especially with athletes, because that's my niche, baseball players,
Right.
athletes. Can you give some encouragement about? You just said something. We are trying. I'm talking not about me, but we as a group of people are always trying to impress other people. We post everything, and we want people to follow us, like, dislike. And when you're on a high, you're on a high. But when you're on a low, you're on a low. And the question I want to ask you: how can people deal with that when they don't have Christ in their life? Because they're trying to get self encouragement. I'm sorry, not self. Other people's okay
Hmm.
based on what you just said. Can you break that down? Can you give them some help? Because I've noticed with athletes, they, well, he didn't like that or she didn't like that, or I'm like, that doesn't matter. But as you as a professional athlete, professional coach, an author, a speaker, you've done many things. Can you give them some encouragement? How can they put themselves first and understand
Sure.
that you're trying to please you first and not the people that you think they're pleasing? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to be there.
It's as simple as this. I'm a Christian who coaches baseball. I'm not a baseball coach who's a Christian. I understand the social media point of building your brand because it can make you a lot of money. I mean, now, especially at the college level with NIL deals, and you're providing for yourself, eventually you're providing for your family. Building your brand, I get it. I totally understand. Um, but when all that goes away, what's your foundation,
Mm.
right? The wise man built his house on the rock, and the foolish man built his house on the sand. Because when the winds and the rain came and his house broke down, right, he didn't have that solid foundation, right? So it's great, and I get it, and people are trying to build their brand to be influential because they have, like yourself, you want to help people. Other people are just trying to promote themselves, and that's what they decide to do. But at the end of the day, all of us are going to go through trials. Sometimes it's just a matter of a trial to a trial, and hopefully it's years in between. But if you look at it one way, we are going from experiences to experiences. Those people are going to go through difficult times. You're going to have people spamming you. You're going to have people doing things online. They're going to be blowing you up, and it's your choice if you want to retaliate online.
Mm.
Um, it's your choice how you want to respond. Are you going to react emotionally? Or are you going to respond with thought? And really letting them understand, who are you as a person? Don't get so wrapped up in your identity being, you can almost turn yourself into an idol, right?
Yes.
Because it's a matter of, well, how dare they say that this is who I am? Yeah, well, how about humility? How about meekness?
Mm-hmm.
How about strength under control?
That's
Like
right.
all those things. How about the fruits of the spirit? It talks about having that patience, kindness, right? Having self control, and so for me, build your brand, and you want to go out and you want to build who you are, but understand that when that gets taken away from you, who are you?
That's right.
And it really hits home when you're an athlete and you're in your 20s. And typically that's what happens with athletes. The high level athlete's something's going to get taken away in their 20s. It's either going to be their college career ends or their pro career is going to end. The elite are going to be the ones that still play into their 30s,
Right.
and those are
That's
going
right.
to be like, you got the 0.0001% that even play pro sports after the 10% who were in college, right?
That's right.
And then 10%, I mean, the 10% of the 0.0001%, or maybe less than that, are playing in their 30s. So your 20s, something's going to get taken away from you.
That's right. That's
Your
right.
athletics is going to is it's mostly going to get taken away. And what are you after that? And there's going to be times where you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, where your business gets taken away, your money gets taken away, something happens, you made a decision that was a foolish decision, or maybe it's not even your own fault.
Right.
I was at a Bible study a few weeks ago. A guy, the IRS blew this guy up, and really it was unmerited apparently. And now I don't know the whole story. There's always two sides of the story, but sometimes things happen, and it's not your fault. But God can use. I was reading this morning in Acts. God can use what one man chooses for evil and use it for his own good.
That's right.
Um, and so having that faith and knowing who you are, knowing your foundation, um, and really remembering, you know, going back to square one. We talk about that from a hitting standpoint. Like when you're struggling, go back to square one. Go back to your basics.
Correct.
Don't get so caught up in who you are online and that's your persona, but who you are as a person and what's your bedrock. So remembering that is really important.
I like that. Which brings me to the next thing you talked about falling. We talked about overcoming this chapter with the O, and it's in Proverbs 24, verse 24:16. It says, "For a righteous man may fall 7 times and rise again, but the wicked shall fall by calamity." And I read this today because I read Proverbs pretty much every day. If it's the 24th, I read the book 24. And I read that, and it just hit me again, like always. A righteous man may fall 7 times, but again, he rises up. And I just want to give some encouragement for the people that are listening. I ask you guys to go ahead and get a copy of the Today book. We got the very own author, Billy Horton. He's also has coached and still coaching. From my understanding, he hadn't told me to stop coaching yet. I hope he is still coaching. He's
Oh yeah,
coaching. He's coaching out there on the East Coast somewhere over there in Indie ball.
West Coast.
I'm sorry, West Coast now. I apologize. He's always going to correct me too, because he's also a funny guy. I think he should be a comedian. Anyway, he might make a little bit more money being a comedian as well. But coach, this has been good. I'm only going to have you like another 6 minutes left because I want to ask a few more questions. As far as this Today book, how are you going to apply this book with your coaching with your new team this year?
It's the same thing I've been doing. Really, I mean, this is a book it's been 5 years in the making.
Oh,
The
okay.
first book I wrote was done in a year. So 7 Day Fast was a 1 year book. This book was laid down, and then in 2020 for obvious reasons that things went sideways in everyone's life, and then it was picked back up, and then it was put back down, and then In order for me to have to finish this book, I needed to be at a certain level of success for
Okay.
people to be like, oh yeah, well I would buy that because otherwise it makes no sense. I felt personally I needed to be at a certain level of success um, to in order to have buy-in for this book, and I went through really difficult times there for a few years through the setback years that you
Right.
might read about. Um, so for me, it's the same as it's been the past couple of years. Is we have four simple rules in our clubhouse, and it's another acronym. I'm an acronym guy, even though we're even Cactus. It'll is It's an acronym.
Yep. I
The
know.
Cactus Athletics is an acronym, and
That's right.
and rate is respect, accountability, timeliness, and excellence. It's how you rate yourself every day as a person. Um, we keep it very simple in our clubhouse, and you abide by those rules. Everything else take care of itself. And really, it's a matter of encouraging these guys. Really having feel as a coach. Please don't forget how hard the game is when you played. And that's the biggest sin that we commit as coaches is we forget, and you're blowing guys up, and it's like, listen, how about you would never blow up a guy in a professional game. You're a double A manager and you're yelling across the town at your shortstop. That doesn't happen. It's a grown man. Don't do it to your 14-year-old shortstop. Like, bring him in and talk to him on the side and say, hey, what'd you see on that play? Ask him a question. Let him answer. It works itself out. Well, I need to tell him in the moment. No, you don't. Just have him come in, pull him aside for a second. If he's going to be leadoff hitter that inning,
That's
don't
right.
talk to him.
That's right.
Wait
That's
for the
right.
next inning.
That's
Write
right.
it down.
That's right.
Have a notepad. Every head coach, every
That's right.
manager, every hitting coach, pitching coach, you should have a small little notepad in your back pocket. Write it down,
That's
and
right.
you can have those for notes after the game, and have a 5-minute conversation after the game with
Yep.
the whole team. Do not blow up players during the game. I don't care if they are 8 or if they are 28. You
That's it.
don't do it at the pro level. I became a better coach at the youth level when I became a professional coach because I
Oh,
realized I can't blow up this man. He's a man,
right.
right? It isn't going to
Right.
go well. There could be
Right.
an altercation,
That's right.
seriously. And
That's
there
right.
was, and not with me personally, but there was times where there was altercations with players and coaches. So really, this book, the way we're going to apply it this year, is the same thing I've done the past few years. And I was in Billings, Montana in 2023. We had a great team. We
That's
had
right.
great players, and that makes coaches look good. And then we were in YOLO last year up in Sacramento, and we have some of those players that are returning, and we're moving from YOLO to Yuba City, the Marysville area, so about an hour north where we were last time. We have a different stadium situation, a better setup for us. Um, and those 10 guys that are going to come back, they're kind of going to run that locker room, right? And they're
Right.
going to come in, and the other new guys who we have some really good players coming in, they're going to come alongside them and they're going to lead together, and we give them the opportunity to do that. So um, I think that this, like you talk about the today mentality, really helping those guys, because eventually all of them are going to stop playing,
Yeah.
right? And the real fortunate ones stop when they're 40, and that's not many of those guys happen. And those guys are set for life. Those women are set for life if they're a professional, basketball player or volleyball player. They're Olympic athletes that are getting money endorsements. They do it for a long time. Um, those are the ones that are very fortunate. Most, if not, the very most of them are going to eventually step away. So just being an example of a man, of a husband, as a father, is really what I'm called to do, what I'm trying to do, so I can help these young men and influence them, so that it helps influence the next generation in their family and the
That's right.
generation after.
I like that. Well, I got a few minutes left. I'm gonna go ahead and close out.
Yeah.
I've got a quick question. The last few questions I want to ask you. Being an author, being a coach, being a husband, a father, uncle, everything you've been. Can you give the listeners some encouragement? How do you manage doing all of that? Because at the end of the day, in today's society, they can't handle very many things. I'm just being honest and transparent. A lot of people can't handle so many things. Like, oh, I have too much. I have anxiety. That's the most famous word I always hear all the time. How do you balance your day being a coach, being an author, being a husband? Can you give them a tip on that?
I'm not real. I'm actually a bot. There's many of me, and it's a matter of I've duplicated myself, so I go all around. Um, it's you master the art of efficiency, is really what it comes down to. Is I know that I need 7 hours of sleep in order to function well, so I get my 7 hours, and I get up in the morning and I have my time with the Lord, and then I have my routine that I go through. And yeah, I own a business. I'm a professional baseball coach. More importantly, I'm a Christian. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm trying to, I'm balancing all those different things, and really, it's about being efficient. And it's also one of the most powerful words in the English language is no. And our Pastor Travis, where I go at Impact Church, he talked about that years ago, and it did speak to me. It's like it's okay to say no,
That's right.
because just because you want to, if you're trying to please everybody, you're going to eventually, hurt yourself and your family. I had to step away from running Cactus at the highest level that it was, because I wasn't going to invest all of my time in other people's kids and my own children be by the wayside.
That's right.
And then me be the guy in the Cats in the Cradle song, which is my biggest fear, right? That
Right.
my kids grow up and they don't have time for me.
Right.
So really, just and how do you go about doing that? How do you become, a master of efficiency? You plan things out. You have it in your phone. You have it written down. You look at you plan out your entire week, your entire month. You look at what it can do. Are these things that people are asking me to do, are they going to, is it going to be something where it's going to benefit not only them but me, which usually it will benefit them, but do I have the time to do it? And making sure you're sitting down, if you're married, sitting down with your wife, hey, what's our schedule look like? So her and I both have calendars of the boys' sports schedules and my business schedule, and then planning out. I'm someone who procrastinated when I was growing up and trying to plan things out. Like we've already, we know when we leave, we're going to have a house sitter, to watch Rusty, and we're going to have, a yard guy and a pool guy and all these things we normally don't have. So planning all that stuff out. So really, talk about vision is you're planning and mapping all that stuff out. So in order to be efficient, you have to be able to be a planner, number one, and number two, you have to be able to say no.
That's it.
And people don't like that necessarily, but guess what? Someone else is going to say yes. So again, don't worry about it. If you say no, they're not going to do it, then that gives someone else an opportunity. When I talk to players, I talked to over 100 players this year. We're going to sign, just over 30 of them. Some of them I made offers to. I didn't make an offer to 100 of them. I made offers to maybe 25 guys that said no. That's all right, because they're going somewhere to play, and someone else who may have not gotten a job, or someone else who was thinking about going to a different place but wanted to come to us, they have the opportunity. So as long as someone's getting that opportunity, that's what we're looking for.
I like that. Well, thanks, Coach. I appreciate it. The very own Billy Horton. Go get you a copy of this book today. It's at Amazon. Coach, any closing remarks before we close out today?
I just enjoy spending time with you. I enjoy making you laugh. Again, you have this innate ability to not drink water. I don't know how you go through another entire podcast. I haven't watched enough of your podcasts. I don't watch every one of them. I've watched quite a few. So I don't know if you drink in other people's podcasts. I don't know if I talk too much and you don't need to wet your whistle. Maybe I talk too much. I am absolutely just in awe of your ability to not hydrate. Maybe growing up, maybe you had coaches that were like, "You're weak. You can't have you're salt. You're not allowed to drink. Water makes you weak. Come on, rock."
I love this guy.
I would say, aside from being very impressed with your lack of hydration, I would encourage people to go to my website. Go to let's do a plug. Go to billyhorton.com. The way it sounds, BILLYHORTON.com, and on there's literally hundreds of free articles that we're trying to inspire people, men to be greater men. There's other books that I've written and other things I've written that are on the website. On the products page for billyhorton.com. the Cactus Athletics. So again, the word cactus, like the plant, and then athletics. Cactusathletics.com. Go there. There's hundreds of baseball articles written by me, Corey DeHaan, who is on your show, other men who have written these or that played pro baseball. And there's articles about inspiration, about coaching, about hitting, about pitching. There's over 100 videos on there that are all free. Again, it's this information's free. I want to help inspire people, so I would encourage them to go to those websites, even if you don't buy a book. You know, if you can read a free article that inspires you to be a better husband or a better dad, that's great.
Mm.
But yeah, this is I really want to. I really feel like this book has an opportunity to make a big impact on the world. I'm hoping that it does, and if it inspires just one person, then it's worth it.
Mhm.
But I really appreciate that you went through it,
Yeah.
and that you're doing what you do. It means a lot for you
Yeah.
to really encourage people to go get this.
I like that. I'm gonna close out, but I'm gonna actually we have set this Saturday Bible study, and I'm gonna bring the book. And normally I sit back and I listen, and I'm gonna bring it up and bring up some situations from your book, and then encourage them to go get a book. So and I always ask this question at every show: where am I being led? LED. L stands for listen. Listen to everything that Coach Billy Hort has talked about. He talked about the book today. He talked about applying life skills, also, which leads us to the next letter. Letter is E. Listen and execute everything, because faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God. God gave us 2 ears, and we should be listening. Also, which Coach Billy brought it up very well today. He talked about walk it out. If you do something, you want something. A vision does not come a vision. It's from a dream, it comes, but also becomes a vision once you start walking it out and applying it. Correct, Coach?
Yes.
Which leads me to the last letter, the D. D stands for dominate. God talked about that in Genesis 1:28. He created us to dominate over every creeping thing on the face of the earth. So everything that God has done, He wants us to do as well here on heaven as has on earth. So this is Coach Laurie, very AKA Seville. I keep looking at this book. Go get you a copy on Amazon. Billy Horton. Thanks, Coach. You have been nothing but a blast. I love it. I love your book. I want nothing but success. Never stress, and God bless. Take care, brother. Love you.
Thank you. Thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much. Love you,
Bye
brother.
bye.